In this video, we're going to focus on creating a model and connecting that model with Chart.js. So when I click on this, you will see here now, it will open up and it will indicate what we selected, Monday. For example, I click on this, we selected it here on Thursday. Let's close that and then click here, Friday. So every one of these bar segments will be connected with the model. So let's start to explore how to do this. So let's start to explore how to connect the model when clicking on a bar in Chart.js. So the first thing what we need to do is to get our default code, and you can find the default code here basically in, this is the link, chartjs3.com// and then somewhere you eventually see getting started, and this link is also in the description box. So scroll down and just grab this entire chunk of code here. Once you have this code, and if you want to understand what this code does, make sure you watch this video here that explains it all. And then what I want to do here, of course, is to paste that in there, and once I paste that in there, cut out the title here, put that in there, save that, refresh. Alright, so now I have a nice bar chart here, and what I want to do eventually is to create a model. So we're going to create a model, a really basic model here. So I'm not using Bootstrap, but I will make a separate video for that. So I'm going to scroll down here, and what I'm going to do just for the basics here, because it's a nice exercise as well, to create our own model. To do this, I'm going all down here, so you can see this is the part here that is from the website, and then here we will have the model that will be a standalone. So say a div, and this div will be an ID, and we can just say here model or bar chart model, bar model, that will be fine. And then put a closing div, and then in here, what I want to do now is give this a specific class. Let's say here model background. And what this really does is basically when we open up later the model, the background should be like a slightly transparent, darkish color. So that would give it a bit like a faded effect in there. So then what I want to do is eventually the next one, which is basically the model itself. So we're going to say a div class, and this class will be the model. And in this model, we have, of course, 3 items. What I want to do here is very simple. We will have a model or div class model header. Model header. In the model header, we will have just a basic text. So I'm going to say, yeah, we can do an h2 and say, you have selected. And then here, we will put in the color. So for example, what I want to do is when we click on Monday, then eventually it should show Monday, or not color, but Monday here, basically whatever the label would be. So I'm going to say here, this is a span, and this will be the label itself. So I just can give it a class of label, and then we say here Monday for now. So this is hard coded, so we will soft code this later on. So once we did that one, the next one is exactly the same, except here it will be a body. Then here div, alright, and then in the body here, just for now, it's just simple, just a paragraph. You have selected, again, same stuff. You have selected, and here, then of course you could do all kinds of things, A, B, C, whatever you want, doesn't matter. So then once we have this, final one is the model footer, and the model footer will have eventually a button that will close the item. So we say a model footer, there we are, and then in here, to make it simple, I'm going to say a button. I'm going to use the button tag here, and you might have a question, why button tag or why href tag or the anchor tag? And what I've understood so far, having the button tag is better if you are using JavaScript functionalities. Having a link, then you should use the href tag. So doesn't really matter, to be honest, not that much, but apparently this tends to be a good practice. However, it doesn't matter as well, because in Bootstrap I think they're using all the href, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, what we're going to do here is we have this button, and then we're going to say here class btn, and then we have another one here is we can say here danger. That will be the color, and this will be close model, or basically just close. So if I save this now, refresh, there we are. So it shows nothing, but just at the bottom here. And what we're going to do now is we want to make sure that this is overlapping everything else. So let's start to do that one, and for that we need some CSS code. So what we're going to do here is just very simple. We're going to start with it. I'm going to say a hashtag, and that's basically the model itself. Oh, let me just double check where that is. In here, of course. So this is the bar model ID. So we're going to say your hashtag for the ID bar model. And this one will have just a very basic item. The first one is I'm going to put a z-index, which basically indicates that we are going to be on the very top. So this z-index, think about layers. So we have x and y, which is x is the horizontal, y is the vertical, and then finally we have the z-index, which would be basically the depth of a element. You can think almost like 3D, and this is almost like a 3D element. Then we're going to create the depth where we have layers. So what we want to do, we want to be on the top layer. Well, the default of what we have here right now is the 0 z-index, so z-index 0. So I'm going to say, z-index 1. And then once I did that, I'm just going to leave that for now. And if I save this, let's see if I refresh, nothing happens yet. Oh, what we need to do now is work with the position. So for that, I'm going to use now here the class of this bar model. So where is that? Oh, that's here down, sorry. I'm going to get this bar model background. I'm going to put that in there. And in here, we just put it all together, it's fine. In here, we can start to say the following. Position will be fixed. Alright. And then we're going to say margin 0 and padding 0. So we have no margin, no padding. Alright. And then what we want to do is where we want to put them in, which is basically x and y coordinates. We want to start here at the corner up, the left top corner, covering 100% of the screen. So what we're going to do here is, I'll say here left 0. And then I say here top 0. If I save this, you should see already it moves up. Alright, so you might not notice it very much, but it is basically on top already with the z-index, so that is correct. However, the background needs to be solved here. So what we're going to do here is the following. I'm going to say here, besides that, is the height. And what will be the height? It will be 100%, but 100% will be just 100% of the viewport height. And then the width, 100% of the viewport width. Very straightforward. Save that, refresh. Alright, so now it is fully on there. However, you will not notice it until we do the following here. So what I want to say here is a background color. I'm going to say background color, and for now, I'm just going to use RGBA, and we're going to use a slightly transparent black color. So I'm going to say 0, 0, 0, which is a black color, and then we say 0.5 for 50% transparency. So if I refresh here now, you can see here we're getting darker, but the button here is still being clear. And if I try to select now the back text, I'm not able to select that because of the z-index. Or you can see here, eventually if I go here up, do something weird, that works, but this is exactly what we want. We want to make sure that we are not able to do anything else behind there, only on the front. Alright, so now we have this one. So what I want to do now is basically, you can see here we have this button. If I click here close, it doesn't work. So let's start to work on that close button. So that's a JavaScript functionality. I'm going to put in here enter. And then what I'm going to say here would be the following. I'm going to say a constant. And then I'm going to select here, I guess we can select the model. This is the model, which is the ID. And the ID is the bar model here. So I'm going to grab that one. I'm going to say here constant bar model equals document dot get element by ID. And the ID name is bar model. And basically what we're saying here, go search in the HTML document for a element name with the ID of bar model. And remember, we only have one ID with the same one ID here because an ID is always unique. So we always select one single element here, which is the ID element. Alright. What we want to do then is basically the following. I want to trigger this, that when we click on close, we should hide this. So what we can do here is very simple. We're going to say here, well, very simple. What will be the function here is let me think, function, let's say model close. And that will be the function, which is of course in the button here. Where's the button? Somewhere here. We want to trigger on this. We say here on click should be model close. Alright. And then, so that will mean that once we click on this, it will trigger this functionality, and this functionality will do the following. I'm going to grab this here, put it in here, and I'm going to use just a CSS trick in combination with JavaScript. I'm going to say here dot. They're going to say here class list, meaning I'm going to add a class, but how I will do it, not by doing add, but by toggle. And toggle is basically, if you're very familiar with a checkbox, when you click on a checkbox, it appears, the check mark appears. And when you click again on the same check mark, or checkbox, it will hide it. And that's the toggle effect. So it show, hide, depending on the current state of the checkbox. So what we're going to do here is show hide based on if we have a class on, it will show that class. If it's not, if it has that class, it will remove that class. So we're going to say here the hide. Alright. What I'm going to do is we just add that one in the bar model. So if I save this now and refresh. Alright, so let's open up developer tab. Let's click on this bar model here. Now if I click, you can see here we add up hide. Click again, we hide it. Beautiful. So what I want to do then is basically very straightforward. Once we have this class here in the bar model, I'm going to do another one. I'll say bar model, and this bar model will be dot hide. So that will mean that the bar model also has a class name called dot hide or hide. And then we say here the z index will be minus. If I save this, refresh, close, you can see here something happens. Of course, we still have some work to do to fine-tune this, but it starts to do something very nice. But what I want to do now is, of course, next item is to give it a bit of a, or at least to remove this completely, because you can see here what happens here is there's an instant effect, and I don't want this. What I want is to make this gradual. So to do this, first of all, I want to say opacity, and opacity would mean how many percent of transparency is it compared to visibility. So if I say a opacity of 0, it would indicate there's 100% transparency, and so that is fine. So what I want to do here then is opacity, so I need to do exactly the opposite, say here 100, meaning that it's full visible. So if I refresh now and click, there you are. Now it's gone. Basically, it's not really gone. What happens is it just becomes transparent. You don't see it anymore. And that's basically what we're doing. You put it at the back where you make sure it's also transparent, so it will not affect anything else and will not last anywhere here. However, of course, later on, once we click on it, it should show up again. So we have this, but the effect might be just too instant. And maybe we want to do just gradual, so we can do that as well. So I'm going to say here the following. I'm going to say here transition, which basically allows us to gradually transform from one to another. Basically, this will refer to whatever we have here once there's a different class adjustment. So like here, when we add this class, the opacity here, we want to transition the opacity, so there will be not anymore instant. And then what I want to do is to give it a 0.2 seconds effect. So it will be gradual, or at least slightly. Well, maybe do 1 second first so you can see it. So once I do this, save this and refresh. Alright, close that. You can see here now it goes slowly away. Of course, this is not what I want because you can see it's too slow. 0.2 would be just enough. Click here, and there you are. This is fast enough so it will not give any confusion. But of course, what I want to do is exactly the opposite here. When it shows up later on, and that's later on when we have the click button, or when we click on it, it should be gradual as well. Because right now this is instant because it's on loading stage. So in the initial loading, it will just show up immediately. But later on, we have the click, and when we click on this, it will gradually show, and then we have an option to gradually remove it. Alright, so now we have this functionality, which is the most important one. We're going next one here. So we have the modal background here, and what I want to do here now is, I guess what we could do here is this button. We could change that, but also we have the entire, if I see here, the modal header, footer, and the body. And the body wants to be, or what I want to do with the body is to make it 100%, or whatever is left. So if we have the header and footer, whatever is left between, that should be full, so that the footer will be at the bottom. So let's start to do that one now. So to do this, what I'm going to do here is, I'm going to say here, first of all, dot model. Then we say header. We're going to give it basically a background, or not even a background, sorry. I realized we need to do model first. I'm getting ahead of myself, so I'm going to say a dot model. And what the model needs to do here, of course, because right now we don't have the background. We only have this grayish color here, or the faded color, but that is not enough. What I need to do here is to have now a model that will be the full width and the full height of our item. So I'm going to say here width, and this width will be 100 of the viewport, and when I say height here will be 100 of the view height, or sorry, the view height, yes, VH, viewport height, that's the correct term. And then what I want to do here is, if I save this now, refresh, doesn't work yet, let's say background, color will be white. Save. There we are. So now it starts to look better. But if I click on that, it disappears. Beautiful. Then now what we can do here is starting to work on it. So what I want to do here, because basically these are 3 separate divs, but I want to make them a column structure, meaning that it's almost similar to a table. This will be top, this close button should be in the bottom, and this one here should be in the center, or at least center, this whatever is left. So that's what we're going to do here. So I'm going to say here, display flex. So I save that, refresh. Alright, so now it's aligned, but I don't want that, of course, because what I want to do now is I will say flex flow, not in a row structure, but in a column. So they're just stacked below each other. Beautiful. Now once we have this, what I want to do now is start working on the model header, body, and footer. So I'm going to say here, model dash header, and the model dash header will have the following, or we can do even for each, because you can see here what I want to do. This is now all separate, but there should be some border lines to make sure that it looks properly. So say here body, and then here footer. So I'm going to give them all almost the same structure, and we might later on adjust a single one for the body model. So what I'm going to say here is the following. I'm going to say first of all border. Let's give it a border. Say 1 pixel solid, and then a hashtag 666, which is the official color for Chart.js. And then what I want to do is I want to get this color, and eventually I want to put here, or at least the border, because if I save this, you will see there's something wrong here. It's get too thick because there's like a double layer of it. So what I'm going to do is I want to have only here top border, left and right border. That's it. Because the others will have that, and eventually maybe the footer will have a separate footer border. So I'm going to say here border top 1 pixel. Let me say here border left 1 pixel. Let me say here border right 1 pixel. If I save that, refresh, there you are. So now it starts to look quite nice. And I'm even surprised that the border here of this one still works, but that's alright. So now we have this. What I want to give it as well is probably some padding and maybe margin. Well, margin not necessary. Let's give it a padding. Padding of maybe 20 pixels. Save. Let's see how it looks like. Absolutely phenomenal. It starts to look nice. And if I click on this, there we are. Beautiful. So now what I want to do is the following. We're going to work on, I guess, the body. The body must be on full width. And then after we can give this button maybe a nice color. And then we're done with the most important part. So in here, I'm going to say dot model dash body. And then I want to say here flex. This is all related to the flex functionality here of the flex flow, but the flex display. So in here, I want to say flex, and here was be the flex. Is it the shrink and grow? So I just say 1 to 1. So 1 1, and then default is auto. So save that, refresh. There we are. So now this is a full height from whatever is available. So basically you just calculate automatically. There we are. Alright, now we have this. Let's do the final one, is the button. So I'm going to say a btn. I can just give this a nice color. Let's say here border radius 5 pixels. And then what I'm going to say here is, let's give it a padding of 10 pixels. And font weight can be bold, so it looks a bit more appealing. Font weight bold. If I save that, let's see how that looks like. Alright, you can see it starts to get better, except that this border is maybe too big. So I'm going to remove the border here. Border equals 0. And then what I want to here, let's see what we have as well. We can say here, that is probably what's missing here. If we hover over it, let's make a cursor. So cursor equals pointer. Save that, refresh. Alright, click, there we are. So now we have this, and then finally I want to do here btn dot, and let's say a danger. Remember, we had this color here. So what I want to do is here, this connected item, is give it a proper color for the background and the border. And I'm going to just grab the color I use here. We use one of these colors here, this nice dark red color that I use all over the website. So I'm going to say here, let's see here, this is the background. You can say background color to be very specific. There we are. And maybe a border color. Put that in there. Or maybe you can say even set a border color. let's say border 1 pixel solid. All right, save that, refresh. All right, and maybe the text here should be white. Let's see here. Let's give it a color white. Save. All right, that is absolutely beautiful. So now we're done here with this. What we have to do now to trigger it. So first of all, let's create the trigger so you understand exactly how we're going to do that. So I'm going to just create this, and remember we have this toggle here. And the real thing is this, basically we're going to say open, modal open, is this, and then I'm going to just make a simple button here. I'm going to grab this, and then what I'm going to do is I just put it in here, and we just say here modal open. We could even keep it on modal close. I guess it's just the same. We don't have to even do this. If I save that, I just modal close, refresh, close, close, or open, toggle. Remember, it's toggle. That's why it's toggling here. Toggles from one to another. All right. So this works. I guess this should be just modal toggle. It's probably a better term. Anyway, so we have this here. Now we have that functionality, but I don't want this functionality in here. I want it separately when we click on this specific item. So the first thing what we need to do here is to make sure that the Chartjs or the canvas or JavaScript recognize that when we click on a canvas, it recognizes that we clicked on it. So that clicking event is being recognized. To do that, I need to cut out this item here. I'm going to say this will be CTX, which stands for context, which is a very common term used for canvas drawing. And all I want to do here is I want to do this. I'm moving it up. The reason why I'm doing this is just simply for one reason, is I need to make sure that I get specifically the canvas itself, and not, because you can see here, normally this here, if I would do my chart, it will load the canvas and draws all the functionality that we want. And I don't want to draw all the functionalities. I only want to get the canvas here, so it recognizes it. So then what I want to do here is the following. I'm just going to say a function. And this function can be a modal, maybe we can just say modal open. It will be just a simple function here for now. And what I want to do here is, I'll say here console.log. And then what I will do here is I'll just do a hello clicked. Alright, once I did that, what I need to do now is trigger this. So how can we now trigger this individually? Well, we can grab this one here, and what I'm going to say is ctx dot on click. What I'm going to do is I'll say here modal open for now. So when we unclick here, we modal open, or we open the model here. If I save this, or we don't even open it, but we open the console log. We will trigger this function, but it will open the console log saying we clicked on it. So I'm going to close this, click here, open up developer tab. You can see, you know, hello click, hello click, hello click, hello click. All right. So here's the problem, of course. It doesn't distinguish if you click on this bar, on that bar, or on the white space. So now we're going to work on doing that. So we have this functionality. This is already working. Now we have to work on the hard part. So to do this, I'm going to save this, and I see here, as if I refresh, we get this here. So I want to hide this now. We don't need to show this by default. So I'm going to look at our item here. You can remember this, the bar.model height. Let's search here for the bar.model, and then we're going to say here class model. Class height. We're going to add the height here so that if we refresh, by default, it will just hide the model. It will not trigger it at all. So now we have that all done. Let's start to work with the functionality. So what I'm going to do here now is we're going to use just a Chart.js functionality, and this Chart.js functionality is very powerful, and that will help us to now register the clicks, because right now we only are able to register we click on the canvas, but it doesn't distinguish where we click, and that's what we're going to do now. So I'm going to say here constant, I'm going to say points equals, and I'm going to use a specific functionality which is on my chart. That's basically this constant here, dot get elements with an S at, pay attention to the A, event for mode. So pay attention, every single word is here capitalized, or at least every first letter of the single word is capitalized. So this is very important. Basically, this functionality is from Chart.js built in, which helps us to understand and distinguish if we click on one of these element shapes. And that is absolutely phenomenal, because without that, we would have to get all the coordinates here, and that is a huge tricky part. Alright, so once we're done with this, and I realize that one thing I'm forgetting here is basically the click item. So this needs to be registered. So let me show you as well. Why? Because this will now show us when we say click, it will record where we click on. That's the event basically. Save that, refresh. Click. You can see here it gives us all the information here. It gives us the coordinates, layers, X and Y, page, X and Y, everything what we need. So, but of course we don't have to calculate anything anymore because it's already built in because of this functionality. But I need this information here. So what this really says is, alright, get the element at the event. What's the event we're going to do? The element is basically down the bars here, but the event is the click. Remember, it's because we have an onClick event. So this is the click variable, or the constant, or the value. So we say click, comma, and then what are we going to do it, or how will it be triggered? Based on nearest. And nearest would indicate if we are somewhere in the area here, it will be showing, it will understand it's the nearest one. However, we want to be more specific. We're going to say here as well, curly braces, and then we're going to say intersect. And then this intersect column, we say true, and then comma, true. So if you're wondering what is intersect, so intersect, think about a crossroad. Another word for a crossroad is a intersection. Basically two roads connecting with each other. So basically in Chart.js, if you hover over a element, it will intersect. So the moment we intersect this specific Friday bar, the purple bar, it will show us a tooltip with the matching values. But you can see the intersection happens the moment we hit that border area, and everything beyond that it will not trigger. And that's what we need to do here. Basically we want to get the value which is the nearest. In this case the purple is the nearest because we're nearest in this, and we intersect on the purple element. That's what we're doing here. If we're on green, that's why we have like that. So we need to have that, but then specifically on click, when we click on the purple bar within those coordinates, show the purple data. Alright, so now we have this. What I can do here is to help you out, to say give me your console log. I'm going to say a point. I'll save that, but I will close this or remove that one. Save, refresh. Click on it. You can see here what happens. We get now information, and we get here very variable information. Dataset index and the index itself, which is the data point. Which is correct because this was 4. Because this is index number 4. This is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Alright, so if you click on all of this, you can see if I click on the white space, it will show you that it will not show anything, or there's no array, because there's no element in there. We didn't click within the element, we didn't click outside of the element. So there's no intersection, or we didn't intersect an element. So now we have that. I'm going to comment out this. I'm going to say here now, an if statement. And this if statement will be very straightforward. If we get points, it's an index of 0. That is the case. What I want to do here is very simple, to just say maybe a console log. Console log the points. So if I save this now, refresh, click on the white space now, nothing happens. Doesn't matter where I click, but if I click here on any of these specific elements, it shows it. Alright, so that will mean now we can start to grab this and this here as well, because the if statement helps us to protect if there would be any errors. Why? If you would do the outside the if statement, and you click on the white space, there's of course no array data, so that's why it will give you an error. So with the if statement, it will prevent us from getting an error. So now we have this. What I want to do here now is constant, and we just get the data. So let's say data point. And the data point would be, you have the data set index, but of course with the data points here. Save that. You can see here how we get that data points. Same with the index. We're going to put the index in there, and then we're going to say here constant, and then I realize I gave it the wrong name here. I want to cut this out. I'll put that on the index. Here we say points array 0 dot, and then here I don't say points. I want to say here this would be the data set, not the data point. So once we have this information, we can now start to gradually extract the color information we have here, because you can see here we have Monday, or specifically the labels. See here Monday, etc., etc. All these data, and I want this data here, and we can pinpoint now because we have the different data sets. So what I'm going to do here is the following. I'm going to say a constant labels, and this labels here is basically, oh sorry, it's not even the labels here. What I want to do here more specifically, I want to get the data labels. So how do we get them? Let's go up here. In the data, constant data, we can go here to labels, and we can see all of these items here. So we don't need to get any of the data set in this case, because the data set would only have us the information or this label or something else. But what I want is just Monday, Tuesday, up to Sunday. Whatever we click on, that should be it. So I'm going to say a constant, or not even constant, I'll just say console log. I'm going to say here, let's grab the data, and say dot labels. In the labels, what is the index value, which is the data point? Put it in there, save that, refresh. Click on it, you can see here, we get 2 items. Let's remove this. Save that again, refresh. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and whatever we click on, Sunday, etc., etc. So now we get this, and this helps us to extract the values. What I want to do, and this is basically what we had here, is basically this item here, the bar model, can be put in here as well. So if I save this, refresh, if I click on one, there we are. So it recognized the click, and it will open up immediately. Of course, we have still one problem. You see here Monday and Monday, but if I click here on Friday, it's still Monday and Monday because it's hard-coded. We have here the soft-coded information. So what we're going to do now is start to play around and just do some label adjustments in the HTML that is here up. Sorry, I was looking for it. Remember, this had the items here, and these are the labels. I want to convert this now. So how are we going to do that? Well, basically, we're going in here, and what we're going to say is the following. We have these labels here, basically all of this, and what I want to do is, I want to say for each. So I'm going to say here, the data labels, which is, if I'm not mistaken, oh sorry, no, this is of course not what I want. What I need here is the query selector first. Why? We have these classes here. I want to look through these classes and get all the classes, the span class with the labels, or more specifically, any class with the label connected with named label. That's what I'm trying to say. So I'm going to say here constant, and this constant we can say here maybe labels for all the labels we have. Let me say a document dot query selector all, and then here basically query selector. Query means search in the HTML document for a selector, and a selector is a syntax like a href, a div, and in this case for us a span. But here all, so I want to look for every span class or every element with the class name label. If I'm not mistaken, it is label. Here you are. So then we have this semicolon here, and if I do now console log, say labels, save that, refresh. Alright, so if I click on that, you can see here we get a node list. It looks like an array. It's not an array, but it's a node list where it shows all the children elements in here. Although it functions very similar to an array, so we could do just a basic for loop here now, or a for each loop, to loop through every specific span label. And it understands which span label we're hovering over. As you can see, that's this one, that's number 1, or number 0, index 0. And I have here index number 1. Alright, let's put that in there. So what I'm going to do here now is the following. I'll say here labels, which is the array, or a node list for each, and for each of those I'm going to give them a label. So for every label I'm going to do the following. What I'm going to say is this. I'll say here label dot inner text will be equal to what exactly? Well, remember here we have the data point, whatever we click on. I'm going to put that in there, semicolon. And once I did this, I can save that, then refresh. And now click on that, close, we click on this one, Thursday, close, beautiful. And maybe what I want to do here, I want to let it first do everything, and then we can toggle the classes. Alright, so once I have this here, I can just even remove this. We're still, well, we're almost done. Basically, we're done in essence, but what I want to do is save that, refresh, check one more time, we click on that, you can see Tuesday. What I want to do now is remove the so-called button that we have here. That should be our test button. So I'm going to say this one here. No, this one is fine. but this one here should be removed, which is just below the canvas, because we need only the modal button, and then here this could be empty. No need for it, because it will trigger automatically the moment we click on an item. Friday, Thursday, and etc, etc, Tuesday. So as you can see, we can do now a lot more. So if you like this video and maybe you want to go, for example, even more further by adding up links in here, in that case I would highly recommend you to explore this one here, which is basically how to create a clickable bar link with Chart.js. When you click on it, it will open up a new tab with a link of that matching with that bar.